If you've been told the IELTS examiner can fail you for your accent or stop you early because you're doing badly, you've been lied to. Today, I'm going to demystify the IELTS speaking test, what really happens inside that room, what examiners are looking for, and what the rules actually say. By the end, you'll know exactly what's going through the examiner's mind, so you can stop guessing and start performing with confidence. Let's get started. I'm Kevin, a former IELTS examiner and English teacher with over 10 years of experience helping students reach Band 7 and beyond. In this video, we'll look at three things: what happens during the test, every minute, step by step, what examiners are actually scoring you on, and the biggest myths that cause students to panic. Let's go behind the IELTS curtain. First, let's talk about structure. The speaking test lasts between 11 and 14 minutes. That's it. Never longer, never shorter. It has three parts: the introduction and overview in part 1, which is 4 to 5 minutes. Part 2 is the long term, 3 to 4 minutes total, including your 1-minute prep time. Finally, part 3 is the discussion. Now that's 4 to 5 minutes where you go deeper and discuss ideas. The examiner has a script to follow. We can't skip questions or add new ones, except in part 3, where we are allowed to ask follow-up questions based on what you say in your answer. If you hear, "Let's move on," "Let's talk about," or a polite "thank you," it's not about your performance. It's about timing. Let's look at each part in a little more detail. In part 1, the goal is to make you comfortable and get a natural rhythm. At this point, the examiner is trying to get used to you, and you are trying to get used to the examiner. We're going to ask you about familiar topics. These are questions about where you work, what you do, what you study, what you do for a hobby or in your free time, or your hometown. Sometimes the questions are a little strange, but they aren't necessarily difficult. They're designed to be answered in a shorter way. In part 1, the examiner has strict rules to follow. We have to ask a certain number of questions, and we cannot change the wording of those questions. We can ask a follow-up questions of why if we want to. Also, we're allowed to give you the same question again if you don't understand it or don't hear it. In part 2, you get a cue card. You have exactly 1 minute to prepare and up to 2 minutes to speak. The examiner will hold a stopwatch, and as soon as we hand you your cue card, the timer starts for your preparation time. Do not wait until the examiner tells you that you can begin taking notes. We don't say that. Also in part 2, except for in very extreme situations, I'm not allowed to change the topic. You have to answer the card you were given. Finally, in part 3, we'll ask more analytical or abstract questions. This is where your higher level language really matters, explaining ideas, comparing opinions, and giving reasons. In part 3, I do not want to hear your personal experience. In fact, if you give me a personal story, I will stop you and remind you that we are speaking more generally. The most interesting thing in part 3 is that, based on what you say in your answer, I, the examiner, am allowed to make up my own follow-up questions. It's really more of a conversation between you and the examiner. Something that many students panic about is when the examiner interrupts or stops them early. I've talked to so many students who were angry or afraid after the exam because they felt that the examiner wouldn't let them fully answer the question. Let's clear this up. Interruptions are normal. Examiners are trained to keep the test within that 11 to 14 minute window. The IELTS is a standardized test, which means that everyone gets the exact same time to answer. Part 1 cannot go over 5 minutes. Part 2, speaking, cannot go over 2 minutes. Part 3 cannot go over 5 minutes. These are strict rules. If I stop you in part 1 with a thank you and ask you another question, it's because the rules say that I must ask another question or that part 1 is over. If I stop you in part 2, it's not because you're bad. It's because you've already reached the time limit. If I stop you in part 3, it's because I need to ask another question or that the test is over. Sometimes, even when you're giving a great answer, the examiner will cut in to ask another question. That's just to manage timing. It's not a reflection of your performance or what your score will be. Another myth is about the preparation period in part 2. You're not being judged while you prepare your part 2 notes. That minute is completely yours. You can make bullet points, draw symbols, even jot down short phrases. The examiner will collect your notes at the end of the exam to keep test materials from leaving the room, but they won't even look at them. The only thing that matters is how you use those notes to speak naturally once your 2 minutes begin. Now, let's talk about what we're actually marking. First, the test is graded holistically. This means you get 1 grade for all 3 parts, part 1, 2, and 3. Each part is not graded independently. There are, however, 4 criteria you're graded in, and each is worth 25% of your score. The first is fluency and coherence. Can you speak smoothly and logically? We listen for flow, natural pace, and logical organization, not speed. A Band 7 candidate can speak continuously with only occasional hesitation. The second is lexical resource. Do you have a flexible vocabulary? We don't need rare, crazy-sounding idioms. We want appropriate, precise words used naturally and some idiomatic items used with an awareness of style. Third is grammatical range and accuracy. Can you use a mix of simple and complex sentences? Some mistakes are fine. Even Band 8 candidates make them. Finally, we have pronunciation. Are you clear and easy to understand? Remember, accent does not matter as long as you can be understood. What does matter is stress, rhythm, and intonation. Think of it this way. IELTS speaking is not about sounding British or American. It's about sounding understandable, confident, and connected. Let's tackle a few myths that cause some unnecessary stress for students. Myth 1, if I make 1 grammar mistake, my score drops. The reality, everyone makes small grammar mistakes, even native speakers. What matters is whether your meaning is clear and your sentence variety shows control. At Band 8, we are looking to see whether or not you're making the same type of mistake over and over and over. The second myth is you must speak fast to show fluency. The reality, fluency isn't just speaking fast. It's speaking with flow. Even native speakers pause. It's okay to think for half a second, as long as your sentence connects smoothly. Looking for ideas and looking for basic vocabulary are 2 very different things. Even high-level speakers have to pause sometimes to consider ideas. Myth 3, I need a Western accent to get Band 7. The reality, I've said this before, a great IELTS score is not about erasing your accent. No, you do not need to sound like me. IELTS is an international test. The key is clarity and intelligibility, not accent. I hate it when students hate their accent. It's something so personal and part of you. Speaking a second language is such a wonderful accomplishment. If you can be understood easily, don't ever be ashamed of your accent. Myth 4 is the examiner can fail me if they don't like me. The reality, examiners follow strict scoring rubrics and scripts. Personal feelings play no role. It doesn't matter if the examiner agrees with you or likes you. Everything is standardized. Myth 5, the examiner purposely gives me really hard questions. The reality, the examiner picks all questions for all examinees before the first test even begins. I cannot change the question I am giving to an examinee once the test begins. Now that you know what happens behind the scenes, here's how to prepare the right way. First, we practice under real conditions. Record yourself with a timer. Get used to 1 minute prep and 2 minutes speaking. This is so important. The second, focus on fluency first. Don't try to be perfect. Try to be connected. Your message should flow naturally. The third, use frameworks if you need to do so to keep your answers on track. In my classes, I teach 3S+1 for Part 1 and Triple E for Part 2 and 3. These give you structure without memorization. Number 4 is listen back and self-assess. Use my free IELTS Speaking self-assessment checklist. Tick off what you can already do and you'll instantly see your weak areas. Then revise your plan going forward to focus on those areas. And speaking of my checklist, comment free and I'll send you it, my free IELTS Speaking self-assessment checklist. If you want personalized feedback from me, you can book a mock test or get coaching at kevinteachesme.com/classes. Also, make sure to keep an eye on the website because I have some exciting things launching in November. So now you know the truth. The IELTS speaking test isn't a mystery, and it's not your enemy. It's a short, structured conversation with clear rules and a clear goal to see how well you can communicate in English. Stop worrying about tricks or accents. Start focusing on fluency, connection, and clarity. If you found value in this video, give me a like and subscribe and connect with me on Facebook, where I find it's easier to stay in touch with all of my students. Until next time, happy studies.